Here is all of the current information that we have from the Madden gameplay deep dive that just came out, obviously about the Madden's new gameplay. Starting off, we have QB DNA. There are whole new levels of detail, such as unique ball holds and revamped animations for how the ball is from the pointer finger last to how it looks based on the power and other variables when you throw to make it look incredibly realistic and smooth. Overall passing just looks better now, as quarterbacks will now bounce on their feet and look for receivers while in the pocket, just like they do in real life, obviously. And there's a variety to each quarterback's style and tendencies, such as Caleb Williams' jump pass under pressure and Josh Allen's flip when he's close to a receiver. There's brand new pocket locomotion, which I am incredibly excited for, such as jukes and spin moves that we can actually do behind the pocket, as well as new styles for players like Kyler and Lamar. How they move around in the pocket and how they run. There's unique arm slots and footwork fundamentals to make it look even more realistic and make it look like they're actually the real quarterbacks, like Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, these real-life quarterbacks. There's now more details to field vision, such as how shorter quarterbacks will struggle more with accuracy when looking over linemen, and now when vision is blocked, receiver icons will fade out. And they made a whole bunch of changes to CPU quarterbacks, just to make it more realistic on who you were playing against, as they are now way more aware about the down and distance, time, and score when throwing the ball, so they're not just going to throw a check down when it's 4th and 10 in an important game situation, as well as they will now move in the pocket based off of pressure or to buy more time, and better rated quarterbacks will let go of the ball quicker in the face of pressure and vice versa for the worst ones. And overall awareness will factor in much more into how many reads an AI quarterback will make, and this is not just quarterbacks, but there's a new set of 50 different advanced player traits based on real data tendencies. They added to the old traits that used to just have stuff like if you threw the ball away or not, or stuff like that. And there actually is a full list on all of the ones that have been added so far. Actually, the coach DNA is pretty big. Each coach will have their own style and their own identity. There are dynamic coach suggestions based on your user's team/coach for specific game situations. And of course, there's counterintelligence for smart counters against opponents' tendencies, making it increasingly harder for them to run the same play over and over again, and vice versa if you were to do the same thing. And there is an absolutely massive playbook expansion, much more than in most other years, including shifts, exotic blitzes, and multi-motions to highlight specific schemes for specific coaches and teams. And there are many, many, many more small details based on real-world data and what these coaches would do in different situations. They completely revamped the O-lineman and overall just the trenches with new O-lineman block steering physics, as well as the new pass rush stunts and twists to add more strategic depth to the trenches. And they overall improved O-lineman and D-line animations and physics for more realistic plays based on ratings, momentum, positioning, and more. And they have a new leverage system, which will be for aligning where and how every player is based on the play call, which will, of course, affect each matchup's outcome, which obviously is a very large thing in real life, not only for receivers and their cornerbacks leverage, but also for the linemen. And now you can have your linemen ignore potential rushers in case if you think that they're not going to be pass rushing, and you can make other O-lineman pre-snap adjustments, and they are much, much easier to actually make now, as well as improving play action, which was very much needed. Play action was pretty much unusable in other games, at least in my opinion. I know in college football it was much worse, but it's apparently better now and much more realistic, which is hopefully usable. Of course, they added wear and tear, which always, just like in college football, will affect how you strategize using your players. There are now dynamic substitutions, which will be great to just allow quick and easy substitutions while you're in pre-snap, just to, you don't have to pause the game or anything like that. There are now custom zones that allow you to adapt your coverage pre-snap, like route stems. You can obviously put them further back, closer up, and stuff like that. And overall, they did improve the pass coverage logic for more realistic reactions, as well as some more detail to how much separation a DB can get based on their ratings and leverage. Of course, matters much more. And much like the old lineman ignoring a potential pass rusher, you can now have your DBs commit, which will now allow you to either have your DB commit to the inside, which will basically make any route that goes on the inside pretty much impossible for the receiver to win. But if they end up going to the outside, then your DB will not be able to catch up, and they will probably end up losing the route. And it's a very high risk, high reward, but definitely realistic. And of course, very big, they added the gadget, nose tackle, long snapper, left and right edge, and Sam, Mike, and Will linebackers to the depth chart. I believe they do actually have the nose tackle and long snapper as real positions, so you can't just throw out a fast center at long snapper because it will take longer to snap the ball, and your punt could potentially get or field goal could potentially get blocked. Of course, the weather is a massive change this year. There's just a ton of new details, and obviously it affects visibility and has a ton of new effects that are obvious. You know, it's weather. It now acts like real weather does. And of course, a cool detail is that how cold weather teams will struggle a little bit more in the heat, and vice versa for the hotter teams in the cold. They also overall improved the movement with improved tackling and momentum by minimizing falling animations, and are now making the transition between animations and the tackle physics and locomotion just much more realistic, so it's less sloppy tackling issues and bug animations during a tackle, such as if someone was not really touched but they still managed to look like they fully got tackled. And overall, it's just going to look much smoother and realistic. I keep saying that because they're making this game much more realistic. And along with that, players will now have much more control of a tackle's outcome based off of timing, leverage, positioning, all of that type of stuff. We will now much more control where and how a tackle happens, instead of it just being a predetermined animation. And this is a pretty big one. When you are close to a first down marker or a touchdown, you can now lift up the right stick to stretch out the ball to get more yards. But of course, just like in real life, there's a chance to fumble. But obviously this has been needed. Sometimes players would do it, but it's very inconsistent. But this is massive. If you want to take the risk, depending on your play style, you can now stretch out the ball to get some extra yards. And another very fun one is that you now have a lot more control on what you do during celebrations, with extended control time where you can literally move your player to a hotspot on the field with separate celebrations, such as a Lambeau leap. They're adding back the Lambeau leap, which is great, obviously, or you could do like a specific, like dunking on the field goal post. You can stay in the end zone, you know, whole bunch of stuff there, but you can now control the player after a touchdown, which I think is pretty cool. And now this is a pretty cool change. Superstar and X-Factor abilities will now be more like College Football 25, with how once it's activated, they will have a much higher chance of happening, instead of like a full guarantee with, I believe, like the Gambit X-Factor ability was basically literally a guarantee you could not throw a pick to a AI receiver, which is not how it works in real life, obviously. So no, it's just a higher chance, but not guaranteed, which obviously is realistic. And this is a pretty cool one. They rebuilt the skills trainer, making it much easier to learn the game, with 130 new drills for every single mechanic in the game, which I never used it. I just kind of learned it on my own and from watching videos, but I'm sure this will be very useful to other people, and honestly, I'll probably use it, because I do not know how to use all of these skills and mechanics very well in the game. So this will be great, and 130 new drills, pretty cool. And finally, this is a very big one. All the hot routes will be available pre-snap. You can make your receiver do any route that is in the game, which is pretty cool. It's just like college football. Again, they're adding a ton of things from college football, because College Football 25 was a great game. Thank you so much for watching. These are all of the gameplay changes that obviously we at least know right now. There's probably not going to be too many that we're going to be learning about until then. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. See ya.